divide up different because the people that we were scheduled to see were not home. So we were brought to this beautiful jungle village area. And that's why we were so late coming back, because Felipe, the Cluster Institute coordinator, brought us there. Huh? And where she lived. And she brought us there. And it turns out that this whole place, this whole village previously was very heavily taught as Baha'is. And that Jamal had been there, and when they walked down the streets, the people came out of their houses and stuff, and they are trying to kind of reestablish this area. Everybody in the area is friendly to the Baha'is. It's a very rural area with farms, and personally for some of us it was interesting because we live in urban places and the message says villages and rural areas, and we got to really see it. And so we went to the first place, and the man there was a Baha'i, but he didn't want to talk to us very much. And he was very clear about it. He said, what happened to the activities? There used to be activities and you don't come back anymore. And Philippa said that there is devotions at her house on every third Sunday at 2 o'clock. She was starting. So he had something to hook into. And then we said, are there people who would be interested in hearing about the faith in your family? And he said, they're not doing very much. And we said, well, can we talk to you? And he said, I'm pretty busy, but he wasn't doing anything. Everybody else was washing cars and farming and stuff. And he said, well, go ahead, talk to them. If you want to, talk to them all. So we did. And it was pretty amazing. We talked to his niece, who was visiting from San Juan, and she, her 2 daughters were there who were 16 and 11, who were just shining examples of what the House of Justice says about youth. I mean, these kids were with it. I mean, especially the 16-year-old. She was just awesome. And her mother started listening a little bit about Book 1 and about what the parts of Book 1 were, and we showed her. We kind of, I was mostly praying, she started by showing some of Anna's presentation, and this guy is out of sight over here. Old White is just rolling with anything anybody says and is right on with her, and the children are responding to him, and the ladies responding to him, and so they got an introduction to Book 1. They agreed to do Book 1. She agreed to have 2 of her family members and 2 of her friends come to Book 1. The youth were very interested in community development and changing the world. They are very interested in the junior youth group, and I'll stop at that part because this family had so many parts going on. That's why the teaching teams got mixed up. Because Barbara saw this lady farming out in the field, and so since we all walked up to the porch, she walked out there.
Yeah, I think this was the gentleman's, who was a Baha'is wife. And she was out weeding the garden, and so I went and started visiting with her. She was really radiant. And so, conversation went on for about 10 minutes, and I told her why we were there, and basically we started talking about the betterment of the neighborhood and the community, and I asked her, what do you think that would look like? And she was really, she talked about prayer a lot. So I asked her if she would be interested, in doing a book to study spiritual development by Guyana, and she said yes, she would really enjoy doing that. So I said, well, you know, she knew that Felipa was her neighbor, so I said, well, I'll have her contact you. But in the meantime, she was telling me about this wonderful daughter that lived with her who had a project called Fusion Infusion, I think, but she's graduating actually at the end of this month. But she's working, she started an NGO, and she's working with youth and junior youth, go figure. And she's working with, trying to get grants and get the government and things moving so that in the schools that physically and intellectually disabled or whatever children will have a place in the school, because apparently right now there's not a whole lot of programs going on. So I said, oh, I would love to meet her. So the woman said, well, go on in the house and talk to her. So I went in the house and she came out and we sat on the couch and we started talking. I asked her to tell me about her project and she was so passionate about it. I mean, she was just like on fire. And you know what she said? She said, now this is the way that teachers need to look at children. They need to see that every child is noble and that they have something within them that can contribute to the betterment of society. And as teachers, we need to find that unique thing within them and polish it so that they can be I remember when I was like, I agree. And so anyway, you know, we talked for a much longer time. And we went over, and Felipa came in, and we did the first part of Anna's presentation, and she was very receptive. And we talked to her about, I had been talking to her about Baha'i junior youth and youth programs, and she was really receptive to that. And so she also is going to join Book One, and she's very interested in helping out with a youth and junior youth initiative in that neighborhood. So I think, yeah, so I think that was like 5 or 6 adults and 2 youth and a child, a junior youth from that home. So then we left and we walked down the street and we were actually trying to get back there before sunset. But then this other woman came out on her porch and started waving, so we went up and started talking to her, and her 16-year-old daughter came out. And so she was actually a Baha'i, but she hasn't been as active in the community. And so we started talking to her about Book One and what it was, and she said that was something she'd be interested in doing with the other group. And then her 16-year-old daughter was a beautiful child, beautiful young woman. And she actually knew the other 2 girls that we had just talked to, and they had said they were going to be in a youth or junior youth. She goes to school with them. So she's going to join that group. So that was another person to join the study circle and another youth.
So that study circle has like 10 people or more now.
Well,
next Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Next Sunday, 2 o'clock.
How many of them all together?
Because there were 6 adults
I'm not even sure.
and 2 youth, you said, plus this lady and her daughter,
Yeah.
which makes 8 plus 2, 10.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the 16-year-old all would be going to the Book One or to like
Junior youth until 14, actually.
Bill was talking to Jerry.
No, I did, yeah.
Bill was talking
Oh,
to
you got
Jeremy
two,
about
maybe.
coming there and helping them get started on
Yeah.
these study circles and stuff.
So you're saying total for this is how much? How many of them? To
At
start
least
with one? 6.
At least 6.
And how many youth were there too?
2 16-year-olds and a 13-year-old.
2.
Then everything is funny.
Thank you.
This is a terrible angle. Oh my God.